As we mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about the status of tourism in Egypt and especially the Chinese tourism after the visit of the Chinese President Xi Jinping to Egypt and specifically to Luxor. We will assess the numbers of Chinese tourists coming to Egypt, and we will be meeting now with a tourism expert, Mr. Ahmed Abu Musallam. Many thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Musallam. And first of all, since Niveen has been talking about the visit of the Chinese president to Egypt and in particular to Luxor, attending this celebration at the beautiful temple there and all the festivities that happened, and most importantly, visiting the different charming sites, getting in and out of it. There is nothing better than all this kind of promotion to the world, not only to China, and attracting the tourists better than this visit and what happened. So if you can elaborate on that very important event.
Yeah, talking about the issue of the visit of President Xi Jinping, the Chinese president to Egypt, and the treaties that was held by the Egyptian president Fattah al-Sisi, these actually, I call these kind of treaties and understanding treaties is more important for Egypt for the next years coming, especially with China. Actually, the Chinese tourism supposed to cooperate with the Egyptian country with more than 5 million tourists a year. Actually, this is going to be number one after the Russian tourism had not, been coming to Egypt the last, months. So I'm happy with the treaties that was held. Actually, more than 15 treaties was held in more than one sector, including transportation, including tourism, including electricity, including all kind of cooperation. And the fields are actually will flourish the Egyptian tourism with China by revolving what we call it the Silk Road. Actually, the Chinese President Jinping was happy by actually the visit of Luxor, and by revolving what we call it the Chinese-Egyptian year, and the celebration of this, anniversary.
What does the celebration at the Luxor temple, what message does it deliver to the world? The Chinese president visiting Luxor and attending a very special celebration at the Luxor temple.
Well, he actually said that it was a fruitful relations for more than 60 years. It's the 60th anniversary between the Egyptian and Chinese government, actually, or country, and this is considered to be, important relations, because the relations have been very fruitful and very cooperative and participating in more than one field, actually, in Egypt. So by revolving this kind of what we call it cooperation between Egypt and China again, including what we call it the Silk Road, as I told you, and the visits to the Egyptian city of Luxor, the president expressed that more than one project will be held, actually, and these projects will include tourism by sending huge number of tourists, by Chinese tourists actually, to Egypt, and this is going to be the tourist number one after the Russian tourist, including different kind of fields in transportation. For example, making a very important 2 railway lines between El Salam area and El Ashar, and also 2 main rail lines in different areas, which actually going to revolve the trade between China and Egypt. What we call it the Silk Road will attract more people from not only China, from all around the world to trade in Egypt, and this could cope with the Egyptian government to attract more tourists, including the trade.
Right. You were in the middle of explaining about a very important point, or elaborating on a very important point, which is the Egyptian-Chinese year. You were going to explain to us or elaborate, and we would like you also to elaborate on the Sino-Egyptian-Chinese relations. So if you can Please give us your input on
Well,
that.
the Egyptian-Chinese year was a kind of celebration actually between Egypt and China to celebrate the anniversary 60 between Egypt and China.
And declaring the year 2016 to be a cultural year between Egypt and
That's
China
true,
also. What's the significance of this?
And that's true. And actually, they
So can
actually
elaborate on this, please.
they actually celebrate actually by dealing with the Egyptian culture. As you know, there is 15 treaties was held by the Egyptian president and the Chinese president in more than 21 fields, and also it's going to cost up $15 billion, including the field of media and culture. So those two fields are really important in attracting people towards Egypt, because the Chinese president actually expressed that Egypt needs the Chinese, what we call it, the Chinese affairs, to be more, in contact with the whole world. And this is going to also be effective for China.
Right.
The China trade all around the globe.
Right.
And this will help actually the Chinese tourist to be more comfortable visiting our country, and to be more comfortable knowing more about our culture, and we know more about their culture.
Mr.
Especially in
Ahmed
those
Abu
two fields.
Musallam, tourism expert, many thanks for joining us, sir.
You're welcome.
And dear ladies and gentlemen, with this we wrap up this edition of The Breakfast Show. You were in the company of Dina Hussein and Niveen Ramzi. Many thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more coming up to Nile TV International.